Well, look who's back. Jamal Murray scorches the Nets in his best game of the season. The starters absolutely dominate. The bench did not. They did not dominate, but that's all right because the Nuggets got a win in Brooklyn. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about what it means for Jamal's performance. We'll talk about the Hornets game as well as preview Christmas Day versus the Warriors. All of this and more on a very merry Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast, part of the Locked On Network, your team every day. Thanks for joining us and making us your first listen. We appreciate you guys being with us and joining us on whatever platform you've chosen. You can catch us on Apple Podcasts, where a 5-star review is appreciated, on Spotify, or if you want to support the show, go to youtube.com/Locked On Nuggets. Best way to support the show, hit that like and subscribe button. Over 5,000 subscribers on that channel. We're trying to get that thing to 10 by the end of the year. Help us out, tell a friend, and support the show. My name is Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network, joined by SwipeAcam. You can follow him on Twitter at SwipeAcam, as well as check out his YouTube page and catch him on the weekends with Ryan Blackburn as well on Pickaxe and Roll. On today's show, we'll talk about the win over the Brooklyn Nets. Jamal Murray scorching Brooklyn. Nikola Jokic playing great. The starters absolutely dominating. We'll get into Michael Malone's curiously continuing decision to sub out Michael Porter Jr. late in games for Peyton Watson. We'll talk about the bench and how it vanished once again on the road. And we'll preview the Hornets and Warriors games on Christmas Day. Want to let you know real quick. By the way, happy holidays if you celebrate. If you don't, hope you're having a great week and enjoying the time that everyone else is busy, stressed out about presents and family, because there's a lot going on. Swipa, I have to ask you something. One, do you celebrate Christmas? I want to make sure. I always try and ask this of everyone I talk to, that like, hey, do you celebrate?
Yeah. I definitely celebrate Christmas. It was definitely growing up. It was a big family event for everybody. So food, presents. Every year I used to get the new N64, PlayStation, Xbox, all that. So I'm locked in. I love Christmas. I love giving gifts now.
I asked this on my Buckets podcast, and I got some really great answers from the guys I did the pod with. If you think back, what's like your favorite Christmas gift you can remember getting?
Probably it's probably still going to be along the lines of, when I think I might have been 11 or something when the Xbox came out, maybe 10, 9. And I remember I got Halo, and, that's all you wanted, like I got a game system. I got a brand new game. That's all I'm doing for the rest of Christmas break for the 2 weeks we're out of school. So that would probably be, like, in terms of gifts, maybe my favorite time. What about you?
By the way, Xbox came out when I was in college, so I'm now crumbling into dust. For me, it was the original 1980s Voltron series. My dad went all over Memphis, Tennessee to 4 different toy stores and grabbed all of the Lions. And I flipped out. I ran around the house screaming like Kevin McAllister. I absolutely went nuts. I love this coming from Hurricane. Mine was the AG dunk over Landry Shamet. That's pretty good. All right, let's get started. So the Denver Nuggets get the win over the Brooklyn Nets on Friday night. Dominant performance from the starters, who had like a 148 offensive rating. Jokic, 31, 11, 7, 3 steals, 2 blocks, 5 stocks for Nikola Jokic, the reigning finals MVP. 12 of 17 from the field, 2 of 2 from 3, notably, 5 of 5 from the line, and a plus 29 for Joker in a 5-point win, which says more about the bench, but it also says how absolutely incredible he was in this game. He hit the glass. Day'Ron Sharpe comes in. He goes to the mid-range jump shot. But the bigger story, honestly, is Jamal Murray. 32 points, 5 boards, 9 assists, 2 steals, just 1 turnover. He shoots 11 of 19 from the field, including 4 of 6 from 3 and 6 of 8 from the line. This was Jamal Murray's best game by far. Great reads, great play, navigated the DHOs perfectly into these 3-point shots. Everything was effortless, was smooth, on point. This was like locked in, awesome Jamal. This was an incredible performance from Jamal Murray, his best of the season.
Now, can I ask you a question? What do you think Jamal Murray is shooting this year from 3?
I would say, because I know how well he's shooting with the starters, I would have to say 41%.
Yeah. Currently, Jamal Murray is shooting 44.8% as a three-point shooter on the year so far.
With Joker and AG, that number's like 50%.
Right.
Like the minutes when Jamal should do what they wanted him to do, which is like shoot way more threes.
Right.
If we're only to ride this wave, because when he has the spacing of the starters, the dude's like above 50% for three. It's wild how well he's shooting in terms of those minutes.
Yeah, and you saw yesterday Jamal Murray's feeling healthy when his off the dribble game is going crazy. He was hitting those mid-range shots, navigating the screen, but even the one-on-one opportunities he would get versus Mikal, he had the one where he did the behind the back step back three-pointer that was nothing but net. And Jamal, his mid-range shot is like the telltale sign for when he is like kind of in the zone, because he makes his threes. His layups can be, hit or miss because he's not finishing as well yet. But as a shooter, man, Jamal Murray's legitimately become one of the best shooters in the NBA, but he doesn't get characterized as that. And honestly, Matt, he's an elite shooter.
Yeah.
Like, he's not just a good shooter. He's an elite shooter. And I really was impressed with him. 32 points. I believe yesterday, Jamal Murray, he had a 71 true shooting yesterday. I mean, he's taking care of business. The only thing that wasn't good is that he went 6 of 8 from the free throw line. We expect Jamal Murray to go 8 of 8 because he's an elite free throw shooter. So his defense, the fourth quarter defense especially, he had that last possession on Mikal Bridges. I don't know if you remember that, where Mikal did that little fadeaway over on the right nail. I mean, in his face, switched hips, got up, contested at the level. Jamal Murray, man, you can just see that, like, the more he's getting comfortable. And I said this, Matt, because last year, Matt, the last 40 games of the year, he averaged 23 points and 6 assists a game going into the playoffs, and he shot over 40% from three, over 50% from the field, and over 86% from the line. And so you saw him start to build that. And I think now, the last 3 games especially, you're seeing Jamal Murray healthy, no ankle issue, not having to deal with all the stuff he was dealing with earlier. He really is just an unstoppable force. And even, respect Twitter. There are people that are looking at Jamal Murray saying, he's been really slow so far this year off, but when you need a bucket, Jamal Murray's one of the best at it. And even hearing the Nets broadcast talk about Jamal Murray, they just say that he's leveled up and it's a championship. It really is just the way he's carrying himself, man. He just looks like a completely different player. They say he's an all-star level player as well. So I was really, really happy to see Jamal get in his bag and to be even the lead playmaker yesterday as well.
I like this comment from Daniel West, who said, in his slips through the paint were easy buckets. He's absolutely right. Like, Jamal's slips were so on point, on target. Those layups. Yeah. One of the things, I'll say this, when I watch a lot of players, they can rush these layups and they can make them too hard, and then they can go too soft, right? Where they're trying to have like a slow game, and against really athletic guys, you can get those blocked. I love Jamal's pace on layups. Like, he's always so steady, so even, slips in it. It's always like the perfect timing on everything that he does with his layups. It's absolutely phenomenal. Somebody mentioned, you talked about the free throws, 6 of 8. Freddie says, Aaron, quote, efficient free throw shooter Gordon, 8 of 9 from AG in this game from the stripe as he goes for 18.
And 25 of 30 in the last 6 games.
And, MPJ in this game started off so awesome.
Yeah.
And then once again, like, just doesn't see the ball. Just doesn't. I
think he scored his 15-point with like 6.5 minutes in the third left.
And like, part of this too is that I will say, like, the Nets, this is a really good win. Brooklyn has a formula which should mess with Denver, which is that they have so many attacking wings to put pressure on point of attack, and they shoot a ton of threes. So it's all like drive and kick, force help, kick, shoot, over and over and over and over and over again. And so this was a really good win. That's like how the Nets were able to get back into the lead in this game and really battle this one, winning this game down the stretch with clutch time performance. Like, this was in part, I think, like a good game I think this is a good game by both teams. This is a good game by the Nets. This is a good game by the Nuggets, particularly the starters. And it's just like, what was the difference? The Nuggets have Joker and Jamal. And like, that was the difference, I thought, late in this game. But I thought it was a really good performance based off of those kind of things. And yeah.
Also, crazy stat for you. So I've been listening to Coach Michael Malone a lot, because when we were in the press game conference, he talks a lot about the fact they haven't turned the ball over. He's been saying this repeatedly. So I went back. Matt, did you know in the last 14 games, The Denver Nuggets have 432 assists and only 128 turnovers.
That's wild.
That's a 3-to-1 to assist to turnover ratio. So I think what we're seeing is that the Nuggets, as Jamal Murray has gotten back, the starters have gotten better. By the way, Matt, another great number you might love. Remember early in the season, we were talking about that the Denver Nuggets starters, they weren't looking at dominant. The numbers were down. I think they had like a +6 net rating at one point in time. Now, in 13 games with the starters, Matt, the starters have a +14.1 net rating. They have a 126.4 offensive rating when all 5 of them are on the court together this year.
Whew.
So they're passing the ball. They're not turning the ball over. They have the 4th best half-court offense in basketball right now. They have the 8th best half-court defense in basketball right now. And guess what, Matt? 8 of their next 11 games are going to be at home. So they're 9-8 on the road. They played the most road games. They got their last one of this little stretch, this little mini road stretch here today. Will be their 18th road game on the road so far this year. And then, like I said, after that, 9 of their next 10, basically, roughly, is going to be sitting at home, man. So they're in a situation right now, Matt, where I think they're getting confidence, they're healthy, they're playing together, and I think they're just going to continue to roll from here.
On the other side, we'll talk about the bench. It wasn't all good. We'll have to talk about the bench and what's happened there. Plus, up next, Peyton Watson continues to play really well. But should he be the one subbing in for Michael Porter Jr. late in games? Should anyone be subbing in for MPJ late in games? We'll talk about that next on Locked On Nuggets. Right now, I want to tell you about BetterHelp. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. The holidays could be a pretty hard time and you're trying to work through a lot and you're dealing with a lot of stuff. Oftentimes, you're interacting with folks that may lead you to memories and stuff that you need to deal with. But the bigger thing is that you want to be able to work through all these things and make sure that you're in the best kind of place. Whether or not your family gives gifts during the holidays, you get to define how you give to yourself, and the holidays are a great time to do that. So whether it's by starting therapy, going easier on yourself during the tough moments, or treating yourself to a day of complete rest, remember to give yourself some love this holiday season. Therapy could be really great for just working through things, just having an outlet to talk through things, as well as not just if you're like, well, I don't really just want to talk and just talk. You can also develop strategies that will help you deal with the things that give you problems in your everyday life. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire and get matched with a licensed therapist. You can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. In the season of giving, give yourself what you need with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us and making us part of your day. I want to let you know that you do need to be checking out the Locked On Sports Today YouTube channel. It's a 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. They're here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. If you do want to catch my reaction to all the Christmas Day games, well, I'll be on Locked On NBA on Monday, so make sure to check that out on Monday night. We'll be going live on that feed as well. All right, Swiba, so everything wasn't all great with this Nuggets win over the Nets. The bench, once again, struggles big time. Reggie Jackson, -15, shoots 4 of 13 from the field. That was a big factor. Christian Brown, -12, 0 of 3 from the field. Julian Strawther, 0 of 5, -10. DeAndre Jordan played 6 minutes. He was a -9. Zeke Naji played 7 minutes in the second half. He was a -9. Only 3 boards for Zeke as well in those 7 minutes. I guess that's a pretty good per 36. But, ultimately, I don't think the bigs were the story in this game. Adam kind of commented he was confused why Zeke wasn't playing because it should be a good matchup for him. And it should be, but it wasn't in the second half because Day'Ron Sharpe, like the problem was in the first half with DJ, the guards would attack. In the second half, Day'Ron Sharpe was just bodying Zeke out of the way on a lot of these drives, so he wasn't able to get contests in. But the bigger story, I think, obviously, is the offense. Like, they just weren't able to generate anything. It shows you how much they've needed Reggie to play well, because in this game where Reggie doesn't shoot well, it was a complete disaster offensively for that second unit.
Well, they also didn't have any process when Reggie was on the court taking those shots either. A lot of them were just kind of isolation, stagnant shots, wasn't a lot of movement. And Julian Strother had some wide open 3-pointers that he just couldn't hit yesterday. But again, he's a rookie. You know, you're expecting that to happen. You're not always going to hit those shots. But they just were discombobulated yesterday. They were getting their switches messed up on defense. They were letting too much penetration happening. And then on top of that, they were going on these runs, and that's where with the bench that just didn't make too much sense, just given the fact that it's not like they had like an amazing personnel out there, but they were getting those 3-point shots up versus the bench, and the bench wasn't communicating well, and then they weren't scoring. Matt, there was a point in time in yesterday's game. I want to say Joker went out at the end of the third quarter, and they were up 88 to 87 or 88 to 81. When Joker comes back in the game, this hasn't happened in a long time, by the way.
Yeah,
they were up 88 to 81. Joker gets back in the game. The Nuggets are down 96 to 98.
Yeah.
What was that?
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. But again, and people are saying they play bad, their young players struggle on the road. Yeah, for sure. But they were good versus Atlanta. They've been pretty good as of late. Now, they only scored 28 points the game before, in the game before this. But they had 62 versus the Mavericks. Today versus Charlotte, they might end up being a little bit better because it's Charlotte. So who knows? We'll see. But they just were, I would say, based on recent information, they were uncharacteristically bad this last game. And they just seemed to not trust what they were seeing. But on top of that, too, because the Nets were switching everything, Reggie Jackson and DeAndre Jordan, they just weren't able to get to their spots on that pick and roll off.
Right. Yeah, that's a big part of it, right? Is you don't have those mechanisms that have kind of held up that bench this year. The other thing I would say is look, this is how it's going to be. I've said this. I said this in preseason. I said this early season. I'm going to continue to say it because we're well, they've been playing really a lot better lately. That's true. But we've seen them struggle this year too. It's going to be like this. They're going to have stretches where they play. The bench is never going to be consistent. It's not built to be consistent. The money's not allocated for it to be consistent. You know, if they had a really good bench unit, you know what that would mean? The starters are worse. You're probably playing starters that aren't as good because they're not making as much money. And so you are going to have this inconsistency. And the reason that they have committed to playing these guys is because long-term, you develop that consistency. If you are only getting these minutes from these young guys in spurts, if it's well, he's not playing really well right now, so he's out of the rotation and we're playing this veteran, then that costs you when that guy's ability to come, you're counting on him to essentially develop consistency outside of stable rotation minutes. You can do that, but it's much, much, much harder. And so there's going to be stretches where the bench plays really badly. We will continue to talk about it this year. And when they have 3 or 4 of them, we'll be does something need to change? And then they'll have a couple good ones. And then they'll be the bench is fixed. And it's going to be this all year long. Consistency. If you look around the league and you ask yourself, what are the consistent bench units in the league? They're anchored by veteran players that just are going to go out there and they're going to have the same performance. Do what?
Chris Paul.
Yeah. You're going to have the same performance every single game, and they're going to know how to navigate these things. The Nuggets do not have that. And you have to be prepared for, Reggie Jackson is not a floor raiser the way that a Chris Paul is, right? But Chris Paul also makes, a bazillion times more money. And so I would just warn everyone not to be every time I feel like there's been 3 different times this season when we have done the bench is fixed show.
Right.
And it's guys, you're going to have these. This is still going to happen. And that doesn't, if you ask well, what's going to happen in the playoffs? The question is just look, the margin is so much smaller because Joker plays 34 minutes in this one, which is a lot, but it's not a huge amount. It's less, he played less than 35 minutes. If he plays 42 and we're down to 8 minutes total, the damage that bench can do even on a bad night is so much less that it'll be fine. And so that's why the model works, but you do have to kind of be prepared for, don't start telling yourself that the bench is fixed because they have a good night or two.
Yeah. And again, whenever you have youth has to work itself out. And they're finding some continuity and they're finding some places that they're trusting players more than in some certain spots. And so, Matt, I don't know if we want to talk about Peyton Watson here, but I want to ask you a question about this. So Peyton Watson closed in the Thunder game. Peyton Watson, who I think I told you many times, sometimes in person, sometimes, when we're just online. I think he's going to be one of those guys. I think he's really good. Like, he has a nice ceiling on him. You know, Luau Deng, I think Ryan Blackburn said Andre Kirilenko. It's like his prototype for what he sees.
Yeah.
Matt, do you think that Malone is playing the long game with this? And it feels like, for me, when he's putting Peyton in there, he's almost basically saying that should you continue to develop, it's not going to be Christian Brown, who's like the Bruce Brown defensive replacement, but it's actually going to be Peyton, because Peyton best replicates Bruce Brown's defense. Plus, he still has Michael Porter Jr.'s length, not to the fullness of his length, but he offers you some cutting, slashing, defensive playmaking, and on-ball defense that MPJ doesn't, necessarily add in the same degree. But what it feels like for me is that even though he's making these substitutions, it feels like he's trying to get Peyton used to being in a role, if that makes sense.
I don't. I get the thought process on it. Like, I get the idea of that, and I think that would be like a very nice way for the story to be told. My feeling is a little bit more skeptical, where I honestly think a lot of this is just I think the front office wants Peyton to play. And I honestly think that Malone, if he's going to get anybody, if he's going to find Peyton more minutes, getting it from MPJ is going to get him in less trouble than it will for getting it for AG or Jamal or KCP, and especially like Joker's, no question, right? So that's, I think, part of this equation. And I think that Malone's continued, and in my opinion, unwarranted skepticism of MPJ defensively contributes to this. Cam Johnson tried for about 15 seconds on a key late possession right before the Nuggets retook the lead for the first time late that they would never relinquish, to test MPJ, and MPJ turned the water off. And the reward for that is that Peyton Watson comes in as the stopper as he gives up a 4-point play.
Well, he's young. That's what you just said. He's young. He made a young boy mistake.
That's great. That's fine. And you're right. He's gonna, he won't make those mistakes later. I think Peyton can be a really good player. I guess here's the best way to put it. I don't know that right now, this season is when the Nuggets should be so aggressively testing the boundaries of what Peyton's ceiling is. Let's talk about
this year.
Yeah. Let's talk about that next when we come back on Locked On Nuggets. Let's talk about PrizePicks. You're sitting home with the family. You're going to be watching games. There's NFL on. There's NBA on. Both of them on the same day. Guess what PrizePicks lets you do? You can do it cross-sport now. So you can combo all sorts of stuff. So you can get in on player points on the NBA, receptions in the NFL. You can do touchdowns. You can do all of these types of things on PrizePicks in cross-sport parlays now to be able to put them together for combo projections. You want to play alongside some of PrizePicks' favorite players like Meek Mill and comedian Andrew Schultz. You can find community plays under the promo tab of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the PrizePicks community each week. PrizePicks features quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types. That's what makes PrizePicks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use code lowercase LOCKEDONNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets, thanks for joining us and making us part of your day. Appreciate you guys being with us on the weekend, on the day before Christmas Eve. If you celebrate, happy holidays to you. We're glad to have you guys be with us all throughout the year. Programming note, I will be with you on Kama and I are going to do a show on Monday after the game, late that night. It'll be a recap late that night because I'm going to come home and hang with the kids. And then Tuesday, I'll be with you solo. And then Wednesday, Adam and I. And then I'm off for a little bit. I'm taking the kids to Disney World. So you're going to be without me for a few days. I'm sure you'll all be very sad about that, to have more Swipe and Adam, but I'll be out for a few days next week, but I'll be with you Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday coming up. Swipe, I want to continue this conversation because I think it's a good one. I get the ceiling aspect of Peyton Watson, and like every fan always wants to talk about like I was talking about this with Ryan, where he's like, but the upside is so high. And I was like, yeah, but like Most guys don't fit their upside. Like, it's very rare that they fill their absolute upside. They're not all going to fulfill like the wildest dreams that people see when they look at these guys' games. Peyton might. Peyton's made huge strides in a year already. He's gone from out of the rotation to solidly in the rotation to being right now the best bench player on the floor. I continue to believe some of that is tied to how he's 3-point shooting. But he also had like really nice dunk late in the game, and the defensive personnel, like his ability to defend, there's no question he's a great defender. I just don't know if where the Nuggets are at right now in their season, like even with the long-term development plan, like you're going to close with him. Why are you going to close with him? It's like, well, in case he needs to take over. Who's he going to take over for? You have a championship core.
I don't think that's what it is, though. I don't think he's taking over. He just is a definitively better defender, by the way, than anybody in the starting unit except maybe Aaron Gordon and KCP. And I said maybe, by the way.
No, they're better. They're way better. They're not.
I know, but I'm saying that before you freak out with your ginger beer over there.
Root beer, thank you.
I'm saying that I agree, but the issue is the same numbers you and I both love. They say that Peyton's the most impactful defender on the team. I'm not saying he's better on a possession-by-possession basis. But what I'm saying is that I think for Malone, the same thing he did with Torrey Craig, who was the worst defender, or any of these other players, is that he wants him to continue to gain his own confidence. But here's the thing. At this point in time, bro, with Michael Porter Jr., I think Mike is just settled and he knows who he is. By the way, if you hear Mike's interview, I've basically listened to every Michael Porter interview possible. He seems like he's completely fine with his role. He knows what he is. He's a champion. He's bought in. He knows he needs to D up. He'll D up. He knows he needs to be an offensive force. He'll be an offensive force when he needs to be. But he fills the role. Yesterday, he didn't score after the 6 minutes left in the third quarter, and he's going to show up today in Charlotte and get ready to do the job again. I'm not saying it's not hard at times. But what it doesn't feel like, though, is that he's somehow attacking Michael Porter, because guess what? He also, I think, Peyton Watson had minutes over even KCP at points this season as well. So it's not like it was just MPJ. He's also played ahead of KCP at times in four-quarter scenarios and situations, and namely the Houston Rockets game, good sir, when Michael Porter Jr. was out there, and it was Peyton Watson instead of KCP out there with the starters. I think he is just experimenting with Peyton, with the roster to figure out how does it work best? How can I utilize the skill set? And again, it's December. You know what, Matt? This basketball might mean might mean everything in the world to particular people in the NBA, in Philadelphia, but not to the Denver Nuggets. They're filling out their roster right now. They're trying to find out who they are, and I think come January, things start to get a little bit different. I don't mean fill it out and like finding guys. I think they have guys that need to play, and they're getting them quality minutes.
I guess, man. I feel like the privilege of being out there in winning time is something that you should have to absolutely 100% earn. And I'm just a little confused at what Peyton Watson has done to earn this level.
Well, Bruce Brown did it in the early season too last year for the Nuggets over MPJ.
Yeah, because Bruce is like a proven dude. Bruce is not in
because he got swept in the first round versus the Celtics and was the best player in the court.
He's been in the league for several years. Like he has had more experience. Like the experience matters here. And the experience,
but I think they're getting,
and the experience leads to things like, I don't know, fouling a 4-point shooter.
I completely agree. But I'm saying, but I guess let me ask you this, Matt. Based on where they are on the roster, and let's say they don't add any more free agents, right? Let's say they don't add any more free agents. For them to go on the run that they feel like they can go on, do you think that Peyton Watson needs to be an integral piece to that?
No.
To be like more developed? Okay.
Nope. Not at all. They don't need Peyton Watson. He's great. It's a nice addition. It's a cherry on top. It might even be like he'll win them games. Like I want to be clear on this. Like Peyton can win them games. Like that's how much this is like a bonus for them, right? Is like not only do we have this starting five, but look what we found in Peyton Watson, right? Just like last year, it was look what we found in Christian Brown, and Christian's had a really tough year. I think Christian's had a really rough year. So like I think the question is like, I don't see any scenario. Well, let me put, okay, I'll put a caveat on that. Healthy, right? The reason to do this is in the event, but I'm also kind of like, wait for the injury and then he gets his chance. You know, like there will be times when MPJ or AG misses games. That's how it already happened. And then Peyton gets those minutes. When you're subbing him in for, and like, I want to be clear on this. This is like my opinion. Like, as you said, I don't think anybody on the Nuggets has a problem with it. Like right now, I don't like. There's been no indication there's any sort of tension over it. But I do think that these minutes matter, and that like I think it says something when you're like, this guy's not going to be on the floor, and I'm putting this guy in. And I just don't know that I look at Peyton Watson as like a closer. I don't look at him like that yet.
Yeah, I think I also agree. But you know what that means? Maybe we should get him some closing minutes so he can figure it out. It's December. That's my whole thing. Like, it's December. If this was March, I'd be like, man, that's kind of interesting. That
I'm the opposite. Do you remember when Peyton was playing in March last year? That's when I'm like, do whatever you want in March. This is eating time. This is when the Nuggets need to eat between January and February. Before we get out of here, look, the Hornets are bad without LaMelo Ball. They are a bad basketball team. It's a bad spot for Denver on the second night of a back-to-back. This feels like a sneaky little bit of a trap game. I wouldn't be surprised if this is close. But the Hornets are so bad, I do kind of expect the Nuggets to win and take care of business here.
Yeah, I think Jokic has 20, 10, and 8 today, and they're out by the third quarter.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, we'll see. You know, they haven't been able to get a lot of those games where they haven't played in the fourth, but they've gotten more of them this year than they did last year, honestly. So wouldn't be surprised. And then the Warriors game on Christmas. This is a sneaky now big game where
Warriors 4 straight.
Everyone was like, oh, well, you know, Draymond's out. So there goes that one. They're a little bit better. Like for whatever reason, like they're playing better. And part of that is ironically, the Warriors who abandoned the 2 timelines concept now have 2 timelines because they have Pajemski and Trace Jackson Davis who are both balling for the Warriors. This is going to be a much tougher game, I think, than you might expect with how the Warriors record looks. Like their starters have struggled, but they're playing really well right now. The Nuggets are getting them maybe at their peak of the season so far.
Yeah, I mean, who knew that you threw some athletic wings around Steph Curry and not like a non-spacer, vertical spacer, anything that was going to help them. So, yeah, I think Pods with Moses Moody, with Kuminga, with Jackson, like, yeah, I mean, they're all adding a much-needed amount of length and youthfulness and some new energy to the roster. And Klay Thompson's having a bit of resurgence as well. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a good game. But I think the Nuggets have won 6 of the last 7 versus the Warriors, I want to say.
Yeah. Plus,
so that without Jokic.
I mean, they're at home and they're a wagon at home, you know, and that Thunder game was it took a lot of events occurring at once for the Thunder to sneak out that win. The easy play here, I think, is on the Nuggets if you're looking for who's going to win this game. But I will be very curious to see a lot of how the Nuggets are able to defend, how those bench units go when they're at home again. Can they combat that with the athleticism that they've got? Can Reggie have a good game versus the Warriors? Like this is a little bit of a test, I think, of some of the guys and how they're going to handle this type of environment too. Like this is a really good test, I think, for everybody's starters. I'm not worried about, but it'll be interesting to see kind of what's happened. I will also kind of this is a weird stat. This is a team stat and not an individual stat because he's been absolutely terrific this season. He's shooting the lights out as he always does, as the best shooter to ever play the game of basketball. They've lost the minutes with Steph Curry this season.
Yeah, I know.
So
the starters haven't been good.
Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting one to watch. All right, we'll be back on Monday. Monday night, we'll get you a recap of the Nuggets game versus the Warriors and get you set for the rest of the week. Make sure to have yourselves a safe and happy holiday if you're celebrating. We'll talk to you guys again on Monday. Thanks for joining us on Locked On Nuggets.